Imam Hussain ﷺ gives a beautiful hadith. He says, Inna nasa abidud dunya wad-dinu la'iqun ala alsinatihim yahutunahu ma darrat ma'aishihum fa-idha muhhisu bil-bala'i qallad dayyanun. Meaning Imam Hussain ﷺ says, people are the slaves of the world, and their religion is superficial, only on their tongues. They are attentive to it as long as their material benefits are provided. But when they are tested, the number of true devotees dwindles. If you look at Karbala, this hadith is entirely Karbala. If you look at Karbala, when Imam says, Hal min nasirin yansuruna, who is there to help us, to help me? You find exactly that the religion of mankind is like they are slaves of the world. And they only use religion if it benefits them materially. And if it suits them, meaning that it's good for them, they indulge in it. Interestingly, you find Imam Hussain ﷺ as he's aiming towards Kufa, but as you know, Hur stops him and takes him towards Karbala, for they agreed. Imam Hussain and Hur agreed that they will take a middle road, because Hur was commanded not to allow Imam Hussain to enter Kufa. And Imam said, I will not stop. So he said, look, I cannot allow you to go there, but how about we make a deal that we take what we call the middle path, that when they meet in this watering place called Zu Hasam, you find that they meet and Hur discusses with Imam Hussain. And tonight I want us to understand what was within the spirit, within the soul of Hur al-Riyahi, that gave him this ability to recognize where truth lies, and gave him the ability to choose the finality of his own destiny. What was it that he possessed? And I know that we possess it to certain degrees, but if we do not nurture it, God forbid, it may slip us, and we may slip on the opportunities by which to take ourselves closer to Allah through the path of Ahlul Bayt. So you find that when Hur meets Imam Hussain, interestingly, Imam is traveling towards Kufa, not taking the main highway, the main road. He actually took the inside roads, the back roads, to use the word. And Hur, who was sent by Ibn Ziyad, was sent to intercept Imam Hussain and to stop him from entering Kufa. And Hur was searching for Imam Hussain, so he also had to take the back roads to find him. And interestingly, when he found Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he was basically emaciated from the perspective of having no water. And his entire army of 1,000 men was so thirsty that they were very weak. And interestingly, when they approach Imam Hussain, as they're appearing near his city, where Imam was, not the city, but where he was at this watering place, they noticed signs like palm trees approaching the hills. And the companion said to Imam Hussain, we think we have reached Kufa because we're seeing palm trees. But actually those were the flags and the ears of the horses that they were seeing, and that they thought it was that. And you find that when Hur approaches, Imam Hussain has a dialogue with him. And I think it's very important for us to assess and to analyze the practical measure of how Hur, whose name means free, whose mother named him very well, is now meeting the Imam of the time. And I want us to understand that many of these people were not privy in person to have met to such a degree that they were impacted as much until they met the Imam. Like Zuhair ibn Qayn was a follower of Uthman, and he considered that Uthman was right until he met Imam Hussain on his way to Kufa, and Imam Hussain convinces him, and Zuhair joins Imam Hussain and becomes a great martyr in Karbala. So there was this exchange, and we believe this exchange was at the level of this free will, at the level of choice, at the level of validating the sanctity of freedom that God created in us. And that they realized that God created us free and we must die free. That's really the message that we need to understand. So when Hur meets Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and he respects him, Hur shows a lot of respect to Imam Hussain because he knows this is the grandson of the Prophet. He knows he's the leader of the Muslim Ummah. It's not a secret, everybody knew. By the way, a quick footnote, the reason Yazid was chasing Imam Hussain immediately when he came to power was precisely because he knew that the leader, the representative of God, is present on earth, and therefore he needs his validation to commit his sins. But of course, Imam would never give him that green light. It's impossible. It's almost like Allah allowing Iblis to continue to, it's like allowing Iblis and saying to Iblis, it's okay that you're committing these sins. It's nothing wrong with it. No, Allah condemns it and will be punishable on the Day of Judgment. So we find that when they meet, they start to converse, and the Imam is explaining to them and to Hur that I am going to Kufa. And Hur is asking Imam Hussain alayhi salam, why are you going to Kufa? I've been told to stop you. Why are you going? And interestingly, Imam Hussain alayhi salam says, I'm going because the people have called me. So Hur said, what people? Who called you? Imam says, I have many letters. He said, what letters? I am not aware of any letters. I am not aware of anybody calling you. So notice they were so in the dark with the political situation of the time because Ibn Ziyad and Yazid and his cronies were just feeding them one-sided information in order to have animosity against Allah, His Messenger, and His Ahlul Bayt. So Imam Hussain alayhi salam tells his companions, bring the baskets of the letters that were sent to him from Kufa, and he presents it to Hur. And Hur is stunned when he sees the letters that came. There were over 150 letters. And each one was written by a leader, inviting him to lead the community. So Hur realizes that this is credible. And it was prayer time in the conversation. As they were talking, Imam said, it is time for prayers. So we will pray. And if you all want to pray on your own, you can do so. Hur replies to Imam Hussain, he said, no, I will join your jama'ah. That right there is freedom. Imam Hussain alayhi salam offering prayers, and Hur, who's on the side of the enemy, recognizes the importance of prayer and decides to follow and pray behind Imam Hussain rather than practice arrogance and ignorance, to say, no, we're going to have our own jama'ah, we're going to pray separately because we don't like you. Rather, he prayed with Imam Hussain and commanded his entire army. That news reached Ibn Ziyad. And Ibn Ziyad was incensed when he heard that, because he realized that now maybe the army of Hur also may turn against him. And he sends a directive. And soon thereafter, after Hur and Imam Hussain are on their way in that middle road, that they receive the instructions to stop where they are, and that happened to be also at Karbala. Interestingly, Imam Hussain alayhi salam was so kind and gentle to Hur, which is a practice you and I must follow. That when we see people who are on the borderline or who are not practicing Islam, we have to invite them to the way of Allah with kindness and wisdom. ادع إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة.